class for today. I'll just share the screen. Just let me know whether you can see the screen. Yes, students, can you guys see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So we'll start from where we had left. So this was the last slide which I had seen earlier. So out of these six different kinds of delivery networks, we saw like which all things are important or faster in pace or which takes a longer period of time and all those things. Like here we have high demand product, like what happens to it at like retail store with customer consumer pickup. You already know at the end here you can see key this plus 2 is very suitable. So we are looking at suitability of each and every network with respect to all these parameters given over here. That is high demand product, medium demand product, low demand product, very low demand product, many different products or many products from different sources, okay, quick desired products. So all these things we saw yesterday. So this particular thing has an what you call scale of plus 2 to minus 2, where 0 is neutral, plus 1 is somewhat suitable, sorry, yeah, plus 1 is somewhat suitable and plus 2 is very suitable. So similarly minus 1 somewhat unsuitable and minus 2 is somewhat unsuitable. So we saw in detail about all those six different networks of delivery, okay, where the companies are employing. So it could be from directly the manufacturer sending the product to the uh, client's location or the customer's location to the manufacturer just keeping the product, not the manufacturer, sorry, the retailer keeping the product and the customer coming and picking up the product from the respective stores. So from manufacturer to the retailer we have seen everything, okay, or there might be some other networks also where it could be combination of these or majorly it will be one of these and there will be small tweaks done or small changes done according to the product or the type of delivery system, okay, and the type of management. So these are the small changes which will be done based on the type of the product, as I told you. Okay. Then coming to the role of network design in the supply chain. So what is this? What is the network design and how it will have a role? Okay, in the supply chain. So supply chain network design decisions include the assignment of facility role, location of manufacturing, storage or transportation related facilities, and the allocation of capacity and markets to each facility. Okay, then supply chain network design decisions are classified as follows. So we know there are four different things as you can see under that. That is what is the kind of facility. Okay, uh, a particular role of that particular facility, how it is, okay, then where the facility is located, okay, and how does that impact. So that is the second one. Third one, capacity allocation. So how much are you storing at each facility, okay. Then market and supply allocation. So how far is the market, okay. Then how many markets are you allocating from one facility, okay, or are there multiple facilities for multiple markets. So these are some of the questions like we can check out. So facility role, what role should each facility play, what processes are performed at each facility. So what all you are doing, are you manufacturing or are you packing, okay, are you is there a packaging unit over there or it's just a collection and distribution center we can call. So that is also a facility only. So what role does a particular facility do. Then facility location. Where should facilities be located? Okay, whether very near to the market, far from the market, okay, somewhere in between the manufacturer or the point of distribution, the start of point of distribution to the end of distribution. Okay, so whether it should be in between. So based on the product and the type of transportation available, even the location plays a very important role. Then capacity allocation, how much capacity should be allocated to each facility. As I told you, like everything comes to Belgaum facility, then it is moved to smaller places, or first only directly it could be sent to those places. So what is the allocation? So how are you allocating and how many markets is this particular facility basically taking care of? Okay, so what market should each facility serve? Which supply sources should feed each facility? So that's what I told. How many markets basically? Those are the supply sources. Okay, so supply sources are coming from the manufacturers. Then we are sending it to the end customers. So who have ordered those particular products. Okay, so how this particular thing works basically. So these are the four questions that are asked. So based on these four questions, okay, we'll just look at them in bit of detail. Okay, so network design decisions have a significant impact on performance because they determine the supply chain configuration. So what kind of configuration you need to have in your supply chain. So that is what, like, based on the role of the facility that you are assigning. Okay, this thing is very important for that. So you need to basically check, okay, what kind of configuration you need to have a particular role of a facility, and set constraints within which the other supply chain drivers can be used either to decrease supply chain cost or to increase responsiveness. So here two things are very much important. Okay, one is responsiveness and the other one is the cost. So there will be a trade-off. You need to take one of the sides, okay, whether it is responsiveness or it is the cost. So if you are looking into the responsiveness, that means as and when you are getting the information from the customer, okay, for a certain order, or as and when a particular package reaches your facility to be shifted to the customer's place. Okay, so how fast are you basically acting, or how much time are you taking from the facility to the customer's place? So it could be half an hour, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So this is responsiveness, how fast I am delivering the product. Okay, so in what less time basically. So to do this, what I need to have, I need to be present very near to the customers place. So I need to be very near to the markets or very near to the places from where most of the orders are coming. Okay, so to be at that particular place, so the price of the facility or to set up a facility increases because the price of that particular place, like for example the rent and everything, if it's a residential area or very near to the market, it would be very high. Okay, that's why I told you there is a trade-off between the responsiveness and the cost of supply chain. So now if you are looking at cost, okay, so as I told you, if you are very near to the market, the costs will be very high. So in turn, who is paying those particular costs? It will be put on the end users or the customers itself. Okay, so or you need to bear the those particular costs which will be incurring you less of the profits. Okay, it could be taken as operating cost, but it will reduce your profits. So what people do is at times, like depending upon the supply chain, you could have your facility outside the market or a bit far from the market, where your responsiveness reduces, even the cost also reduces of setting up a particular facility and operating it. Okay, so that is how it works. That is responsiveness or the cost. You need to balance. Okay, so if you want more responsiveness, be very near to the market or be in the market itself. So if you want to reduce the cost, you need to be somewhere bit far where the prices of the land or the facility or the operation could be less. Okay, that's how we are managing the cost or the responsiveness. Facility role, then comes facility location. So facility location decisions have a long-term impact on a supply chain's performance because it is very expensive to shut down a facility or move it to a different location. So you know, okay, so if you are setting up one thing, so to take it to a different location, so it could be just the employees, or if it is just the furniture there, or if it is, if you are having any machines, so it will be very difficult for shifting from one place to another. Okay, because you need certain things. Okay, like for example, if a particular machine works on a power supply, okay, and it needs just not one or one socket, it needs multiple sockets. So you need to make arrangement for it in a new location, because in the earlier location you have already done that particular changes which you need or which you require. Or if it is not a normal socket and it is a high ampere socket, okay, so even that could be one of the possibilities. So you need to make all those changes. So it is very difficult to find out what all changes are required. So that's why people say, okay, after shifting, we'll look as per the requirement, because we never know how big is the machine. We think, okay, that it will fit in a particular place. Okay, so but when you get that particular machine, so it may not fit over there, or there is no space to operate the machine. So at that time, you need to shift it to some other location inside that particular place itself. But you have made arrangements of the power supply and other required things in a particular place. Now again, you need to change it. So these are some of the common problems faced by many people. Okay, generally these are the problems basically. So if you are shifting from one place to another, it is bit difficult compared to just scaling up. Okay, that's why a good location decision can help a supply chain be responsive while keeping its cost low. So I told trade-off, you need to be somewhere in between. So a good location is which one, where we are like responsive, as well as we can keep the cost low. So responsive in the sense, it should not be very fast also. Like for example, it is uh, in the market, as I told you. So as and when the product comes or the package comes, it is not like nobody is expecting to deliver. Okay, in 15 minutes or 20 minutes or half an hour. So if you see a pizza delivery also, they say within half an hour. Okay, as it is even hot and all. So some of the packages may not contain any food items or so. Okay, because it is coming from different places. Okay, so it is okay to take some 2 hours, 3 hours, or 5 hours after it is reaching your hub or your facility. Okay, it is not that as soon as it is coming, you have to run and deliver it. Okay, so you need to wait, you need to sort, so some time is required. So like if a particular parcel is coming to a particular facility, it will not be the only that parcel. It will be a collection of all the parcels which would be delivered in that particular area, or something. Sometimes it so happens that a particular package is coming here, a set of packages coming in here, which has to be further moved to a new facility. Okay, there will be multiple facilities. So sorting of these things also is important, and it takes time. Okay, so there is a balance. You need to maintain a balance between the responsiveness and the cost. So as I told, in the market, it would be very expensive. Okay, for example, if you see example of Dalgam only, if you want to have a uh, facility in RPD. Okay, RPD cross, it is almost the center. So you can, on the right side also, you can be towards our college, or on the left side it could be where we are entering into the main city center. Okay, or the other side of the city. So if you want to set up a particular facility there, and facility in the sense, it will not be a 3 by 3 or 5 by 4 small room. You need to have a what do you call, a nominal size, where it could be a size of a classroom. Okay, our classroom at least, because facility is coming, we need to sort, we need to have different places, like to be kept, like where it is going, like Sadashivnagar, is it going, or is it going towards the what do you call, our college, or is it going on the other side of the uh, city. So different assortments have to be done. Assortment of those things have to be done, and it needs space. So those who are aware of the prices or the rents at RPD, so for a 4 by 4 room, they are charging around 30 to 40,000 per month. So it will not be feasible for people to deliver, to have a facility over there. So you will not be generating that much of revenue to maintain that particular facility. It is okay that you could be somewhere outside the city, and you would be affording the price of the fuel, whether it is petrol or diesel, but it could be very less than paying rent. Okay, so that's how you need to take the decisions. Okay, then capacity allocation. Capacity allocation decisions are also a significant impact on supply chain performance. How? Whereas capacity allocations can be altered more easily than location, capacity decisions to tend to stay in place for several years. So in essence, what they are telling here is, so the capacity could be increased or decreased as and when required. So it is easier than changing the facility, the location of the facility. Okay, the capacity can be varied, but the location may not be varied because of too many parameters involved, where or too many problems involved. Instead of parameters, I could call them as problems. Okay, too many problems are involved in change of location, but increase or decrease of capacity can be done. If you are having space, enough space, you can increase the capacity, or if you are maintaining the time duration properly. Okay, like what time a particular shipment is coming to me, then what is the gap between that shipment, okay, and the next shipment to arrive. So between that, what I should do is I need to clear out the earlier shipment. Okay, so I can manage something like this with the capacity. So it is easier than shifting the locations. Okay, allocating too much capacity to a location results in poor utilization. Why? Because as and when more and more packages or more and more shipments are coming, you tend to put them in one place. So unless you finish one of the packages that you are already starting to sort or trying to send it to the people or the customers who have ordered. So till then, this particular shipment will be in one place. So that particular utilization of space will not be happening. Okay, so if you are assigning too much, okay, to one location, okay, poor utilization, and as a result, higher costs, because you need more space to store more packages, right? Allocating too little capacity results in poor responsiveness. Okay, why we are telling you this is, so if you are sending very little, okay, you are not utilizing the complete capacity of that particular facility, because you are paying the rent or whatever. If it is your own, you are not utilizing it at the maximum. So there is no much things to be done or work. You can only work for 1 hour or so, because there is very little of assignment to your facility. So work, and rest of the day this particular facility is empty. Okay, so even that will not work. So poor responsiveness if demand is not satisfied, or a higher cost if demand is filled from a distant facility. Okay, so if your facility is less, like your allocation is less, and there is one more facility which is around 10 or 15 kilometers away from your facility, and more of the allocation is done over there, and wherever, which is the areas which are nearer to your facilities also are being sent over there, then what happens? Your cost increase, because that person or the people from those that particular facility have to take care of sending the parcel or sending the package to the places which are near to your facility, right? So the cost of transportation also increases. Then comes market and supply allocation. So the allocation of supply sources and markets to facilities have a significant impact on the performance, because it affects total production, inventory and transportation costs. Okay, just not me being the aggregator, I might be the manufacturer also. Okay, so if I am manufacturing more and more, and if I am having too much of what you call products with me, so I may think that okay, this is sufficient. Okay, when there is a lot of orders suddenly, so I may not be able to fulfill it, or I have to jump into the production after the particular what you call demand has come. So that makes me slower, or my lead time increases to a very larger extent. So that is why it says it affects the production, inventory, and the transportation costs incurred by the supply chain to satisfy the customer demand. So allocation also has to be done properly of what market are we supplying it to, and how far it is, what could be the transportation cost, and all have to be seen or taken into consideration beforehand. Then this decision should be reconsidered on a regular basis, so that the allocation can be changed as market conditions or the plant capacities change. So this is very important. So people are working in a particular facility or particular market. So as and when you are increasing your market size also, okay, you are increasing your market size, or you are catering to different market. Even we need to revisit all these things and check whether it is feasible for me to have the same capacity, or have the same facility, or do I have to have a different facility because my area of service has increased. Okay, so these things have to be taken care. Otherwise, what happens? We are incurring a lot of costs. Okay, because it is very far, and the radius if you see the radius, okay, so if it is 5 kilometers, so if there are only few people who are working and they are going towards different directions. So from one direction to the other direction, as I told you, if the radius is 5 kilometers, so diameter you can imagine it is 2r, that is 2 times the radius, that is 10 kilometers. If there is only one person available and he has to go on two opposite directions, okay, so it will be double the distance that he has to travel. So if suddenly from 5 kilometers radius you made it 10 kilometers, that means your area of service is now 20 kilometers totally from one end to the other end. So at this particular time we need to again reconsider about the facility and the market and the allocation of the supply. Okay, then network design decisions must be revisited. Yeah, that is what we have finished. Next is factors influencing the network design decisions. So these are the important, okay, decisions or the factors where considering we are taking decisions, major decisions like the strategic factors, technological factors, macroeconomic factors, political factors, infrastructure factors, and competitive factors. So we were like thinking mostly about the small area like Belgaum or our own country. But if you see, there are many people who are like getting things or ordering things from different countries. Whether it could be Indians ordering some products from different countries or people of different countries ordering from India. So even for this thing, we are looking into a supply chain. Okay, so we were talking about the local and the national supply chain, but even there is a international supply chain where it varies from country to country. Okay, so that's why these major things which factors I have put over here, so economically as well as like globally all the things change. So different strategies are being used at different countries or different parts of the world. Technological factors, in one place the technology is too high, okay, in some place it is too low. People are not ready to change. Okay. So technological factors, macroeconomic factors. So as and when we are going there, we'll be looking into these things. Okay. Next, first coming to the strategic factors. So what are the strategic factors? Firm that focuses on cost leadership tend to find the lowest cost location for their manufacturing facilities. The people or the firms who are looking at the cost leadership, in the sense at the very lowest cost they are doing the work or doing the job. Okay, because there are many companies who do the same thing, okay, delivering of package and all. There are many companies. So how will the person who is a sender, okay, will choose out of these? Okay, even there is competition. So who is the person who is giving me or who is making my work possible at the lowest cost? Okay, that's what we call as tenders. What are tenders? So a particular work has to be done and there are many players in the market who can do the work. So what I do, I open a tender. In the sense, I am ready to give it to any of the person who matches my requirement and who is ready to do it at the lowest cost. So that's why bids are there. So when the bids are opened, okay, before the bids, the requirement exactly and what to be used and when to be used, everything will be given them by the person who wants the work to be done. Okay, then the various people who are ready to do the work will go through it and they'll quote a particular price and they'll even tell how like how much time is basically required to complete that particular work. So based on all these things, different bids are called and bids are opened. So it will be given to the person or the company who is quoting the lesser cost. Okay, and complying with all my requirements. So that's how this works again. So you know what is the end result that you want. You need the package to be delivered. How it should not be damaged. Okay, it should be properly sent. Then plus at a lower cost. So the person or the company which provides this will be the partner with that particular company, right? So that's how this basically arrangement works. Then firms that focus on responsiveness tend to locate facilities closer to the market and may select a higher cost location if this choice allows the firm to react quickly to changing market needs. So again it comes to responsiveness or the cost. So they are telling the companies who are focusing more on cost, they'll be very far from the place, so that they are getting in a cheaper uh, way to establish or to operate their facility. But firms that need to be very fast in response need to be very closer to the market. The example is Zara, a Spanish apparel manufacturer. You might have heard of Zara, right? So even in India, the presence is there. So Zara, the Spanish apparel manufacturer, has a large fraction of its production capacity in Portugal and Spain, despite the higher costs there. Why? So this local capacity allows the company to respond quickly to the changing fashion trends. Okay, so if you are very far from the market where you are basically catering to, if some new trend has come, so until it reaches you, it may be very late. Okay, there might be new people who are already entered and they have come up with different designs. So what this particular Zara people are doing, they are basically staying within the country or within the market where they are selling their products. Okay, and they are even getting ready. Okay, even if it is a very high cost that they are to incur, because if somebody else enters and grabs their market share, and if this things continues for a certain period of years, and they will not be having any work. They need to move out of that particular market. So they are ready to invest more, okay, in the facilities where they are, to cater the responsiveness or to cater the changing needs of the people over there. Okay. So its responsiveness to changing fashion trends has allowed Zara to become one of the fastest growing apparel retailers in the world. Right? Why? Because they are in the market, or they are knowing the market, they'll come to know as and when the trend is changing. Okay, so they will be preparing for it, how the trends are changing, what to do, and they'll prepare for it, and their products would be almost equal to or very faster than their competitors. You could say they are coming out with their products faster than their competitors. So it is one of the fastest growing apparel retailers in the world. Okay, then comes convenience store chains aim to provide easy access to customers as part of their competitive strategy. So you might have seen convenience store, in a sense, small stores which are very nearby to you. Okay, so there are big stores, okay, like supermarkets and hypermarkets, which will be situated bit far from your place. But convenience stores are small, okay, and the products are also like very limited. Even the variety is also limited, but these are available near your like what I call. So in general terminology, I can say store in your gully. Okay, a small store. It could be anything. So if you are looking for grocery, it could be a small grocery store. If you are looking at medical store, a small medical store could be there near your house, where if you need something, you go over there. So again, here we are looking at convenience. Those are called as convenience stores, which are small. Okay, variety is less. Okay, and the product assortment also is less. Assortment in the sense, too many products are not available over there. Only few products. Okay, this may include many stores that cover an area. Small area, there will be many stores, small stores, with each store being relatively small. That's what I told you, small stores. So global supply chain networks can best support their strategic objectives with facilities in different countries playing different roles. Okay, same facilities, or in a same country, different facilities can perform different kinds of roles. So, for example, we can see Nike has production facilities located in many Asian countries. Why is this? Because the cost of labor in Asian countries is very less. The population is more, so I can say that many people can work at a very less price. Okay, so its facilities in China and Indonesia focus on cost. Okay, and produce mass market lower priced shoes for Nike, in the sense they produce in mass and at a lower prices. Okay, but in contrast, facilities in Korea and Taiwan focus on responsiveness and produce higher priced new design, because they are within a place where the costs are high, so they are ready to bear it. Okay, because they want to respond faster So to do that, the cost is also high. So that is what they are telling. In China and Indonesia, they are producing in bulk, okay, at lower prices. But in Korea and Taiwan, they are focusing more on responsiveness, and the product price increases a lot because they are coming up with very fast designs, as well as the cost is increasing because they are within the market where it is very costly. So then classification of possible strategic roles for various facilities in a global supply chain network. Okay, so what all kind of things are there? Okay, I was just talking about the different facilities, how they are working and what is the role of it. So there are six different roles of facility. So first one, offshore facility. So here low cost facility for export production. Here export happens. Okay, it is an offshore facility. So if I am in India and I am my production unit or my manufacturing unit is in some other country. So it is an offshore facility. The other country facility is my offshore facility. Okay, it is not in India. I am operating in India, but my facility is in some different country. That is called as offshore facility. Then source facility, low cost facility for global production. So again, we will look at these in detail. Okay. So then is server facility. So regional production facility. These people are only serving that particular region in which they are present. Then contributor facility. What is this? Regional production facility with development skills. So here some kind of development of new product or changes in the product could be seen in contributor facility. Then outpost facility. Regional production facility built to gain local skills. So if you think that okay something new or some a particular skill that is required for me is present in that particular location. So what I do, I put a facility over there. Okay, so what is the work of that particular facility? To gain that particular skill, okay, and send it towards the main facility where we are operating. So we are just there to find out what they are doing and how they are doing. That's why it is called as outpost facility, where just to observe. Okay, like you might have heard this particular outpost word in military. Okay, so military outpost, so which are near the borders. What they do? They don't sit and fire every time. So they are there to observe. Okay, what my enemy is doing. Is there any changes in the line of control or so? So are there? Is there any activity from my enemy, or even it could be from our end also, where they are doing some activities which are not in the benefit of the country. Okay, so that is the outpost facility where we are just looking and we are observing. Then lead facility. So lead facility that leads in development and processes technologies. So you could tell this as a R&D facility also. This is a lead facility where they are developing new processes and technologies. So coming to the first one, offshore facility. An offshore facility serves the role of being a low-cost supply source for markets located outside the country. So Nike, if you see the previous example, Nike, if they are selling in US, UK and all, but the production mostly happens, you have seen four countries, which are those China, Indonesia, Malaysia. So in those countries, the production units are there, the facilities for production are there, but they are selling in more different countries than those particular four countries. So this is called as an offshore facility. The location selected for an offshore facility should have low labor and other costs to facilitate low cost production. So these kind of countries are basically chosen where the cost of production would be less, availability of the raw material would be there, okay, and it could be easily transported. So even if you see in Afghanistan also there are many facilities because cheap labor. So if you pay them a little, so they are ready to work. So even in China, so even in Malaysia, okay, Indonesia. So all these South Asian countries or Asian countries basically are very cheap in labor. Okay, because of various reasons. Okay, it could be one of the reasons would be population as well. So there are many people who are ready to work for less price. Okay, the location selected for an offshore facility should have low labor and other costs facilitate low cost production. So this is my offshore facility. Then comes source facility. So what is a source facility? A source facility also has a low cost as its primary objective, but its strategic role is broader than that of an offshore facility. How broader? So the source facility is often a primary source of production for the entire global network. Okay, so the name itself tells you source. So this is the major source or the major facility to the global market of for that particular company. Okay, so major production happens in the source facility. So source facility tends to be located in places where production costs are relatively low, infrastructure is well developed, and a skilled workforce is available. Okay, so three things are very important where the costs are very less. Okay, the infrastructure is well developed. This is important. Even if you are getting low, cheap labor also or low cost labor, but for transportation, if you are not having proper facilities or proper infrastructure, like roads are not good, you cannot enter with a big truck or so. Okay, then from that particular country, the facilities to take your products to different countries is not there. That means there might not be a good shipping network, there may not be a good airlines, or they may lack in the train facility and also basically these are the things where we are transporting our product in masses and with a faster accuracy. Like for example, airlines. So if airlines is there, the cost is high, but the time taken to transfer your materials or transfer your products from one country to other is significantly less when it is compared to ships. So ships may take around lead time in weeks together. It might be 3 weeks, 5 weeks, 7 weeks. Okay. So like this, because ship travels at a lower pace, and there could be many stops. Okay, in between where it reaches you, because they might have some other loads which they have to unload in different countries. Okay, but airlines, yes, even they land in many places, no doubt, if required, but it is a very faster way to transport. So, a source facility, I've seen some facilities tend to locate in places where production costs are relatively low. So, infrastructure is well developed and skilled workforce. Even that is important. So, based on your product, okay, even the skill, whether there are skilled people available over there or the people who are ready to learn, okay, are available over there. So, we need to find such things, such places. So in India, we are having different places where different kinds of skill is available. Plus, people are ready to learn new skills, and in some places, people are not ready to learn because they are happy with whatever they have. Okay. Then comes server facility. What is server facility? A server facility's objective is to supply the market where it is located. Okay, they are only serving that particular local market. Okay, so the term server, so in technological terms, what it is? A server is something that is hosted by a particular company, okay, or a particular facility where it is serving that particular factory there itself. Okay, like I'm talking about the computer server and all. So what servers are doing basically, they are helping to serve that particular facility nearby. So that is why it is called as a server facility. The server facility is built because of tax incentives, local content requirement, tariff barriers, or high logistic costs to supply the region from elsewhere. So I would like to tell you one of the experiences, my own experience. So as I earlier informed you, I am having some industry experience also. So I was working in sales and marketing. Okay. So what used to happen is I was stationed in Tamil Nadu. So I was working in Chennai. So my production facility was in Bangalore. Okay. So we were the manufacturers of the hydraulic gear pumps. So in hydraulics, if you see, the gear pump is the heart. We could say it as the heart of the system. So we were producing that. So I used to take care, like my area of operation or the area that was under me was whole of Tamil Nadu. Okay, so I was serving whole of Tamil Nadu, but I am talking about before GST. Okay, so what used to happen is, so there would be some taxes, okay, which were levied if you are transferring the products from one state to other state. Okay, so you need to pay some taxes to the Karnataka government, as well as you need to pay some taxes to enter into Tamil Nadu. Okay, now this particular thing is not there. So if you are paying one tax at one place, that is GST is paid, you can go throughout India. Okay, so that is where there will be checkposts between uh, different states. Basically, they'll check what material is going, whether they have paid that particular taxes or not, which are applicable. So why I'm telling you is this? Because when I was in Chennai, we had a godown. Okay, why was that? Because intercompany transfers are very easy. Okay, we are not selling; we are transferring the product from one location to another location. So when we are doing that, we are saving some taxes. Okay, earlier, I'm not talking about now. It was earlier. So we had a godown here just to save that particular tax. So tax in the sense the company will not pay the tax. It is paid by the end customer or the user of that particular product. So we were happy to send, but the problem is the cost of the price of the product would increase. So to lower that, we were having a godown. So whatever order was coming to us, we would order it to our manufacturing plant at Bangalore and get it to Chennai, and from there, like transfer it to Chennai. It's the right word. I'm not getting it. I'm transferring it. So it is intercompany transfer. So I'm transferring it here, and I'm paying only the tax for the land over there. Land in the sense I'm paying tax for Tamil Nadu only. Okay, so I am saving some amount where I am doing a company transfer, intercompany transfer. Okay, but by introduction of GST, what is happening is you, as a person in Tamil Nadu or in any part of Tamil Nadu, I can just order my head office, which is in Bangalore, where the production unit is also available. So I could just take the order and send it to them, and I could give the client's address directly. So they can ship directly to the client. So here, what used to happen? They used to send it to us in the earlier case, and we used to keep them in our godown. And there would be additional transportation charge. Again, I have to segregate them. Okay, and as per the requirement of the customer, we used to segregate them and send again. So there was a transportation cost that was levied again. But if once it was sent, so in the present condition, I'll tell you. So if it was once dispatched from the Bangalore facility directly to the address of the customer, so it is a transportation person who is there. So he directly sends it to the customer's place. So it will not come somewhere in between. Then again, one more transportation should take. Okay, so if the transportation, what the person is doing, if he is having multiple things like that, so that's not my fault, or that is not my concern. What is my concern? I have sent something from one place and it has to reach in a other place. So if it is reaching in whatever ways in the time duration that I tell you, that is enough for me. Okay, to save this particular taxes, that's why this thing they are telling you local content requirement, tariff barriers. So this is what is the tariff barrier, what I was talking about. So from one place to another place, or as we call exports, if we are sending it to different country, we call it as exports, and those people call it as imports. So there will be export here to encourage the exports. There will be no much of duties and all. Okay, but for imports, there will be import duty levied on the product for different percentages of the amount. Okay, so this particular things based on the tariff barriers and all, high logistical costs to supply from one region to another region. So to avoid all these things, we are having a facility. Okay, if I am having a market in India, so I'll have a manufacturing facility in India and I'll transport it because of the GST. So it is very easy. Once I pay the tax, and I could transfer it from one end of India to the other end without any additional taxes. Okay. So, example, in the late 1970s, okay, Suzuki partnered with the Indian government to set up Maruti Udyog. Okay, so Maruti Suzuki that we know of. So, in late 1970s, somewhere in 1976 or 1978. So, initially Maruti was set up as a server facility. So, what is server facility? To cater those particular places where this particular facility is situated. So it was made, like this particular Maruti Suzuki was made, or Maruti Udyog in partnership with Suzuki, they it was kind of a server facility where they were catering the Indian market. Okay, so initially Maruti was set up as a server facility and produced cars only for Indian market. The Maruti facility allowed Suzuki to overcome the high tariffs and imported cars in India. So if you see imported cars, okay, so I would like to give an example of this one, which is that web series. Okay, the Big Bull one about Harshad Mehta. If you see, so there is a particular scene where he says, okay, any imported cars have come or what? Okay, he says no, and there is one person who has ordered, and it will cost you a lot. Okay, so he says, you might have seen that particular clip. Okay, it is also a famous clip where he says, I'll pay you double, you can give it to me. Okay, so there you could see imported cars will be having a lot of tariffs. So to get it down, okay, what Suzuki did, they opened a plant in India in collaboration with the Maruti Udyog, and it became Maruti Suzuki. Okay, and it had more than 70% of the market share initially. So you would have seen Maruti 800 cars everywhere. Okay, even they are present now, but the production and sales of Maruti 800 has stopped. So they have made it as Alto now, Alto 800. No Maruti 800 is there, but old cars who are maintaining, those people are still having that, those particular cars. So these partnership, okay. So this is an example of a server facility. So I would like to tell you, you might be knowing this, the LPG in 1990s. So what is LPG? Liberalization, privatization, and globalization. So when this particular thing happened, then people were allowed, or the different companies were allowed to come into India and set up their plant. Otherwise, what they used to do is the Indian government had a law stating that if you want to sell your products in India, you need to collaborate with any Indian company. Okay, that's why you could see old companies like Hero Honda, Maruti Suzuki. So this is where they had come into Indian market before 1990s. So after 1990 and somewhere around mid of 91, so this particular LPG was introduced, liberalization, globalization, and privatization. So where this particular tie-up kind of thing was said, if it is not done also, it's okay. You can directly come into India, okay, and you can start your manufacturing units. So from then you started getting only one company like Hyundai, okay, then Mitsubishi. So these companies later on they started coming into India and with their own name. There was no collaboration with any Indian company as such. Okay, after 1990s. Then a contributor facility. So what's a contributor facility? We saw that we could make some improvements in the process, or we can customize some of the products. So that is what is a contributor facility. So a contributor facility serves the market where it is located. Okay, again it is kind of a server facility, but something addition is there. But also assumes responsibility for product customization. If anything has to be changed, any new thing has to be introduced according to the market, yes, it's done in this particular contributor facility. Okay, it also assumes responsibility for product customization, process improvements. If there is any improvement that has to be done, okay, or if you are looking at low cost, where you have something you are trying to change in your processes, yes, we are doing it in the contributor facility. Okay, then product modifications or product development. We are developing new product. So this could be done in the contributor facility. Small changes in the products, existing products, according to the market availability or market needs. Okay, we are doing some changes, or we are coming up with some changes where in the process to do various things, to save material, to lower the cost, to reduce lead time. So all these things are basic parameters or objectives for coming up with improvements in the process. Okay, then comes the most well-managed server facilities could become contributor facilities over time. Okay, as you already know, server facilities they are catering the local market. So if it was a good server facility, later it could be transformed into a contributor facility where modifications in processes or modifications in the products or new product development could take place. So example again Maruti. So Maruti facility in India today develops many new products. It's not just producing cars which are told by the uh, Suzuki people, but new developments are also happening in Maruti now. The Maruti facility in India today develops many new products for both the Indian and the overseas market. Okay, so these cars which are produced okay by Maruti in India are even exported. Okay, just not for the Indian market, even they are exported to overseas markets and has moved from being a server to a contributor facility in the Suzuki network. Okay, it is just not producing, but it is even making new cars. Okay, making modifications and also catering overseas markets as well. Okay, so that is what is the Maruti Suzuki's role now. Okay, then comes outpost facility. So what is outpost facility? I told you it is basically a overview. We are observation or we are observing. The major work is the observation that is being done. An outpost facility is located primarily to obtain access to knowledge or skills that may exist within a certain region. So some knowledge or about some skills we need it. So for that reason we are having a particular facility there which is called as a outpost facility. Given its location, it also plays the role of a server facility. Okay, because of the location, it is serving the nearby areas only. So it can be called as a server facility also, or it acts as a server facility also. The primary objective remains one of the being a source of knowledge and skills for the entire network. So the things that you are getting here or gaining, the skills that you are gaining in that particular region are being transferred to entire network. Okay, that the learning what you're doing here is being transported to the entire network wherever you have your facilities. If it is advantageous to the company, they are saving some cost or they are it is easier for them to manufacture. So in that case, they are getting the knowledge and sending it to the facilities throughout the world wherever they are present. Okay, that is the outpost facility. Then comes lead facility. What is lead facility? I told you it is kind of a R&D facility. Okay, a lead facility creates new products, processes, and technologies for the entire network. Something new is coming up. So we are developing new thing. We are doing the research. Okay, in the field of products, processes, and even technologies. And it is being delivered once it is standardized. It is delivered to the entire network. Then lead facilities are located in areas with good access to a skilled workforce and technological resources. So people who know or who are ready to do the research and development work plus the work, the technological advances, okay, which they require in a particular region. Okay, if they are present, so these kind of R&D facilities are set up over there. So this is the lead facility. So next, so whatever we discussed now was the strategic factors. Now we are coming to the technological factors. So what are technological factors? Characteristics of available production. Okay, so characteristics of available production technologies have a significant impact on network design decisions. So how well are you integrating the technology in your supply chain? Okay, so this will impact in a very larger way. Okay, in the design of your network of the supply chain. So how much of technological thing are you using? Okay, so based on that, your supply chain network is built. Okay, if production technology displays significant economies of scale. So what is economies of scale? So you might have heard this thing. So those who have knowledge of economics, so this particular uh, phrase you might have heard, that is economies of scale. What is economies of scale? So if you are buying something or if you are producing or manufacturing something in bulk, the cost of that particular production or cost of that particular product reduces significantly. Okay, so that is what we say wholesale and retail. Wholesale price is different and retail price is different. So what is the difference over here? In retail, you are buying one or two products. In wholesale, we are buying in bulk. Okay, depending on the product, it could be the numbers would be different. So if you are buying some fridge and all, so if you buy 20 or 30 or 10 or 15, even that is in bulk, that is considered in bulk. Okay. But if you are buying some fasteners, that is nails, screws and nuts, so even if you buy hundreds and thousands, it is not a big quantity. So if you are buying in crores together, like basically these are sold in kgs. Okay, half a kg, 250 grams, 100 grams. So if you want, you can go and buy nails of 100 grams. Okay, based on the size, it is half an inch, like 1.5 inch, quarter inch, and even with the thickness and all. So all these things taken into consideration, the quantity will be there. So if you say 100 grams of small nails of 1.5 inch, so you will get some 50 or 60 nails. Okay, so something like this, as small product as nails, it should be in 100 kgs or 500 kgs. Then only it is termed as uh, big buy or buying in bulk. Okay, but for products like TVs, fridge, washing machines, and if you buy in numbers of 10, 20, or 30, so they will say, okay, I have to give you in retail price. So that is what is retail and wholesale. So this economies of scale, as and when you are increasing the number of productions, okay, number of products that you are producing for manufacturing, your cost of producing that product goes on becoming lesser and lesser. Okay, that is what is economies of scale. So where was I? Okay, the production technology displays significant economies of scale because we are, as the technology is becoming more and more advanced, we are able to manufacture or produce more and more in less resources plus in a limited amount of time. So which significantly reduces the cost of the particular product. Okay, so economies of scale, few high capacity locations are more effective. So example, in the manufacture of computer chips, okay, a lot of technology is involved. Okay, so still now we are not manufacturing silicon chips in India. So we are having target of coming up with factories in India for production of chips. Okay, in the coming 1.5 years. Okay, because we are mostly relevant, or we are mostly relied on China and US for getting the chips. So in the present condition, you might have heard. So the prices of electronic goods or the availability of electronic goods is becoming lesser and lesser, and the cost is increasing because the imports of the chips have been stopped from US to China. So even China is dependent on US for certain kind of chips. Okay, so as US has stopped the sales to China, so the products that were coming from China, okay, even it could be the spare parts of many of the electronic products, even that is not available. So the prices are going up and the availability is going like becoming lesser and lesser because we are not getting those particular chips. So what India is doing under the self-reliant plan, okay, Atmanirbhar Bharat, what we call. So India is trying to come up with the chip manufacturing in India. So if you are related to it or if you are having any knowledge, so this is okay. So as you are in, I think pre-final year, sixth semester. So you could look into these companies. Okay, these companies are coming into India. Okay, so it could be like foreign direct investment, where different companies are coming here, setting up their plant. So people are, I mean, the government is calling different companies, or there could be technology transfer. Okay, Indian companies are doing with collaboration of other countries or other factories or companies which are coming from overseas. Okay, so there is technology transfer. These Indian companies will pay them some amount for the technology that they will be giving it to you. In the sense, giving it to Indians. So you can focus on these companies as well. So if there are any EC and EE students, okay, so or CS students also, so you can basically focus into this area. So in the coming 1.5 to 2 years, this is the like booming technology or booming areas in India as of now, like in coming future. Okay, so you can even focus on these particular companies also for your employment if you are looking at as such. So what is this? In the manufacture of computer chips, for which factories require a very large investment. As a result, more semiconductor companies are built in very few high capacity facilities. So these are there in places where we are having good technology, okay, and they are producing in mass because a lot of cost is being involved in the machinery and all. So very few facilities are there in very few places where they are producing in mass, and it is being transported to all over the world. So that's what they are telling. So technological factors, we are trying to get the technology into our India where we will be manufacturing these particular chips in future. Okay. So recent advancement again like that I heard of was the collaboration between the IOC. IOC, what is IOC? Indian Oil Corporation and the Russian company, one of the Russian companies, where they are tying up in the sense they are coming together and they are setting up a aluminium based battery. Okay, aluminium battery in India, so which is very lighter than your lithium aluminum battery and has a longer life than your normal lithium ion battery. Okay, so this is one of the developments. So where they are coming up with an agreement with the Russian company and setting up the lithium, not lithium, the aluminium battery plant in India. Okay, so that is one of the advancements again. So this is like a kind of infrastructure building for the electric vehicles. So the electric vehicles are coming now. So you might have seen many electric vehicles in India as well. Okay, so to make it more often, like the petrol and diesel vehicles that are there. So to take it to that level, we need to have technological advances as well as many things like the charging ports, the availabilities of batteries. So the batteries also with larger capacity where they could give you long range of movement, okay, with a certain amount of charge. So this is also very important under technological factors. Then the facilities have lower fixed cost. Many local facilities are preferred because this helps lower transportation costs. So example of technology is where lower costs are involved. So I was talking about the computer chips where large amount or lot of investment or very large investment is required there. But now I'm talking about the bottling plants for Coca-Cola. Okay, so here the amount that they are investing is less when compared to other things. So what they are doing? So they are coming up with different bottling plants or bottle making plants. So you can see here, for example, bottling plants for Coca-Cola do not have a very high fixed cost. To reduce the transportation costs, Coca-Cola sets up many bottling plants all over the world, each serving its local market. So if you see in India also, we can see a Coca-Cola manufacturing plant, which is coming up with the bottling plants, in the sense bottle making plants in the facility itself, wherever it is there. So I had a like opportunity to visit one of the Coca-Cola's factory where if you are also having it, so if you go there, they'll show you the raw material. So it is like a test tube. Okay, the 2 liter bottle, whatever is there, it's in a form of a test tube. It's not bigger than a test tube. You might have seen a test tube in your chemistry lab. So it's not bigger than a test tube, but it is a bit thicker. So what they do is they'll put it on a particular nozzle. Hot water or air is pumped at a higher force. Okay, higher pressure it is being pushed inside hot water or hot air, and there is a outside there is a what you call the shape of a bottle. So when you put that particular test tube kind of thing and blow hot air or water into it, it takes the shape of that outer what you call the contour, to the outer contour. So it will be like a Coca-Cola bottle itself. So as and when it opens up or it begins to expand, so it takes the shape of a bottle. So that's how this particular thing works. So it is not much expensive because we just require some heating element plus those bottle fixing elements and the outer contour. So if these things are there, you can produce bottles anywhere. So it will not cost Coca-Cola much. okay, to produce at their facility than to transport them from somewhere else where they are produced in mass. So they set up facilities where they are producing Coca-Cola. Okay, these are the technological factors. Then macroeconomic factors. So what are macroeconomic factors? Macroeconomic factors include the taxes, tariffs, exchange rates, and other economic actors, or it's not actors, factors that are not internal to an individual firm. So these are somewhere which are not in the control of the firm. Okay, these things change from country to country. Taxes change. So if you go to Arab countries or Saudi Arabia or so those people won't pay any taxes itself. But in India, we are having tax slabs, okay, for various companies as well as individuals. Okay, so these are some of the difference where we find. Then tariffs. Okay, so in many countries, what they do is in US and UK also. Okay, the tax rate is very high. Okay, so somewhere around 35 to 40% of whatever you are earning should be paid as tax. But there will be no tax on any products that you are buying. Okay, like in India, you are paying taxes as well as you are paying taxes to buy any product, right? So there is sales tax, there is GST, there is this, there is that, there is cess. Okay, so all these things are there, which in India we are paying, but in other countries they are not paying. They are taking a significant part of the salary of a particular individual, like 35 to 40% directly taxes will be cut, and there will be no taxes for anything other than that. So as and when a particular person in other like countries like US and UK, they buy the products where tax is not applied to it because it is being already cut in the form of 30 to 40% as a tax from the individual beings. So that's how we are having different taxes at different places, taxes and tariffs. Then exchange rates. So from one currency to different currency, when you are transferring money, like for example, uh, dollars to Indian currencies, so what is the exchange rate? So if you want, if you are paying Indian money and getting, excuse me, and getting dollars, it is somewhere around 76 to 78 rupees. It is fluctuating, so it might be even more. So earlier, like the time when I saw it, it was somewhere around 76 to 78 rupees. So if you are going to euros, again it is changing. It has crossed 100 rupees, 100, 200, 3 rupees. Okay, euros. So based on the currency, okay, or which country you are going, so the exchange rate differs. Like India to Nepal. So if 1 rupee of India is 1.2 rupees or 1.3 rupees in Nepal. So we are getting more. So similar in Pakistan. If you see here, if it is 1 rupee, so the same 1 rupee is 1.5 rupees there. Okay, so you are having 50% increase in your amount. Okay, so if you are changing it to a Pakistani currency. So this is how the changes in the exchange rate also work, and other economic factors that are not internal to an individual factors. So what economic factors we are talking about here? In the sense, what is the purchasing capacity of that particular country? Like if I introduce Apple, okay, in a particular country, is that country or the people of that particular country can afford iPhone or not? Because it is very expensive. So if you go to some African countries, they are even fighting for food. So if you introduce iPhone there, who is going to buy your iPhone? It will just fall over there. So this is one of the economic factor which is being considered while uh, you are setting up a plant or having a facility, manufacturing facility over there. Okay, so then as global trade has increased, macroeconomic factors have had a significant influence on the success or failure of supply chain networks. So as we are having global networks now, as I gave you the example of LPG, okay, that is liberalization, globalization, and privatization. So after introducing that in India, we connected into the like properly connected into the global supply chain. There are many companies who are importing their products in India, and there are many companies who are producing their products in India and they are sending it or exporting it from India. Okay, so you might have heard the term SEZ, that is Special Economic Zones. Even in Belgaum, we are having one. Okay, that is ACUS. So, what is a Special Economic Zone? these special economic zones, if they buy something, there will be no taxes on them. Okay, the initial or the base price of that particular product, or we can call it as a component which is being used in a special economic zone, is tax free from Indian government. Okay, why is this? A special economic zone is created, or it is called so, when the 100% of the products that you are producing in those particular special economic zones are exported. So no use of any product that is being produced in that special economic zone should be used locally. So nothing will come out, okay, of that particular companies which are there in those special economic zones into the local market or the national market. 100% of the products that are produced in SEZ have to be exported. Okay, if the government comes to know that a particular product was sold in the local market, at that time there will be some penalty plus the taxes which were supposed to be put on that particular product or the raw material will be levied on those particular people. So, as I told you, I was working as sales and application engineer, and later I became a assistant manager over there. So we were even supplying our pumps to the SEZs also. So what are these SEZ? Okay, I told you what are those. So even those people required the hydraulic machines. So as a component, our product was a component. I told you it works as a heart of the machine, hydraulic machine. So even they would used to fail, they used to buy. Okay. So when we were giving or we were supplying those particular pumps in SEZ, so there would be a written form, okay, which will be given by the companies. I think I don't remember it. I think it is I forms. So there are different kinds of forms: F forms, G forms, I forms. So this is I form, which states that this particular product that is being purchased by this particular from this particular company. Okay, this particular product is being used in a machine which is being exported, or used in a machine which is used to produce that particular product which is exported. Okay, they used to give that as an undertaking, stating it is called as Form I. So any particular person who is selling a particular product as a raw material or as a whole machine, so the company will be providing him with I form. This has to be submitted to the government as and when the particular assessment is being done, because it is exempted from all the taxes. Okay, so it has to be shown to the government, stating that I have supplied from my company to this particular company in SEZ, and I have got a form I stating that this particular product is used in a machine where it is being exported, or in a machine where a particular product is being manufactured. So this is form I. Then basic two economic factors: tariffs and income incentives, and exchange rate and demand risk. So tariffs and tax incentives, what are they? Tariffs refer to any duties that must be paid when products and equipment are moved across international, state or city boundaries. That is everywhere. I gave an example earlier before GST. Even state borders, we used to pay the taxes. Okay, so that is what it is. International borders, state borders, or even at places city border also. If you are going from one city to other, in many countries we need to pay taxes also. So if you are even taking the product outside the city, then tariffs have a strong influence on location decisions within a supply chain. Why? Because if you are there in a particular country, you are producing something to export or to import. If there is lot of taxes that are levied on you, then you will not be able to produce that particular product at a lower cost. Because as and when your taxes are increasing, your product cost also increases. So it is not possible to produce a cheaper product, okay, of a good quality or of the same quality. So if a country has very high tariffs, companies either do not serve the local market or set up manufacturing plants within the country to save the duties. That is what I told you. Then incentives are a reduction in tariffs or taxes that countries, states, or cities often provide to encourage firms to locate their factories in specific areas. So if you remember, some years back, when Tata was about to come up with their manufacturing plant for Tata Nano, there are many states who were lobbying for it. In the sense, they were asking Tatas to come to their particular place or that particular state and set up their plant. Why? Because people of that particular region will get employment, plus the economy of that particular area will increase. So there was a big lobby with Tatas to be dragged them to their state. Okay, first they thought they'll go to Bengal, but because of various issues, okay, economic as well as the political issues, they were not able to set up there. Okay, then even Karnataka government tried, but they were not able to get that particular plant. Later it went to Gujarat because of various incentives given, like free of cost land was allotted. Then at a very less price, the current was supplied, the power was supplied. So even the manpower is available over there at a cheaper cost. Then water and other facilities was also made available to them. Okay, so if you are giving more and more facilities, okay, from the government side, people will eventually come and set up their plant. So that's why present Gujarat, if you see, there were so many reforms which were done, and so something called as ease of having a business or setting up a business. So this is global rating given. Okay, India is around somewhere around 46 to 48, I guess. I don't know the recent numbers. It was somewhere around 126 or so. So slowly India is developing. Okay, so these things, these ratings are given on like what all paperwork need to be done and how fast you allow or allowed the land or whatever resources they require if it is from to be allotted from the government and all. So we have come from 120s to somewhere around 40s. Okay, so this is how development is taking place. We are simplifying the processes of setting up a factory in a particular place. So I'm not talking about a particular region in India. In general, in India, if somebody from outside wants to come and set up their plant, the rating is around 47. So even those companies who wants to set up in a particular country look at this particular rating. So is there a lot of problems that I need to be facing if I want to set up in a particular region, or how easy is it for me to set up a factory in a particular region? Okay, so that's how this particular rating works. Then tax incentives are done. Then many countries vary incentives from city to city to encourage investments in areas with lower economic development. As I told you about this particular states lobbying for the manufacturing plant from Tata. So even they said, okay, if you come to my state, I'll lessen my tax from this percent to this percent. Or many people say that I'll not put any taxes, certain taxes, not all, certain taxes. Okay, please come and open your branch or open your manufacturing plant in our state. So this is what is tariffs and tax incentives. Next comes exchange rate and demand risk. So what are this? Exchange and demand. I told you about the currencies. So fluctuations in exchange rates are common and have a significant impact on the profits of any supply chain serving global markets. Okay, this there is an example that I have given. After this, I'll give you one more example. Okay, so for example, the dollar fluctuated between 102 and 132 yen. Okay, we are talking about the Japanese market. Okay, 102 and 132 yen in the 3 years from 2002 to 2004. So just imagine you are getting only 20 yen. Okay, like fixed amount you are getting 20 yen. Okay, so in 1 year it was 102, it became 132 directly. So if you are changing the currency for the same 20 yen, we are getting 132 yen now. So if we are converting from other currency to yen, but if it is the other way around, if you are converting from yen to dollars, we need to pay 132 yen to get $1, right? So this is how this particular thing works. So one of the currency will be in gain and the other one will be in loss. Okay. So in just 3 years, from 2002 to 2004, 2002, 3 and 4, if you see, So there will be contracts for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years for a certain uh, particular currency in a particular currency. Like for example, if somebody is catering US market, so if they are having some 3 years or 5 years agreement stating that per hour I'll be giving you $30 or $15. Initially, the profit should be very high because of the low exchange rate. So as and when the time goes on, so your profits goes on reducing. So okay, I was talking to you. Okay, there is one more example. After this, I'll give you my example. A firm that sells its product in United States with production in Japan is exposed to the risk of appreciation in yen because the conversion of yen to dollar is happening. So you need to pay more yen to get the same amount of dollars. Okay, that's why it is a loss to the companies who are producing it in Japan. Okay, similarly in India, if you see, so if the exchange rates, if the currency of India falls, if it is like I gave you example of 76 to 78, if it becomes 80 or 82, the profits of our IT companies will increase, like TCS, Infosys, Wipro. So these people, the profits will increase because I told you about the fixed price that is given in dollars. It will be given to them in dollars, like $15 or $20 per hour, okay, of work that is being done by these particular people. So if there is a team of 10 people who are working 6 hours a day, okay, 10 6 is 60, the billing will be 60 hours per day to the company. So 60 hours into $10, take it as $10. So per hour for 10 people, the company is charging $600 to the American company. So if the price of $1 goes on increasing like 80 rupees or 100 rupees, so the cost will remain the same, $10. But if you change it into our Indian currency, you are gaining more. Okay, and I told you just 10 people for 1 hour you are charging $600. So just imagine how many employees work in TCS and Wipro or in Infosys. Okay, and how many hours, okay, it will be charged. In one team, I give example of only 10 people. There could be 12 people, there could be 7 people, there could be 20, 25 people in one team who are working for one company. Okay, so 25 people working for 1 hour is 25 hours of billing to the company which they are providing the service. So in this, like this, the profits will go up to a larger extent. So as and when the price of India or India loses the weightage of its currency, it is helping, helping in the sense it is like helping only I could say gain more profits. Okay, with the same amount of charge what they are levying on their companies to provide the service. So that's why the share prices of these particular companies go high because more profits, more people tend to buy their shares. So the share price, as the demand increases, the share price will increase. So each and everything is connected in economics. So you need to check in those particular ways. So just by increasing or fluctuations in the exchange rate, just see where it led. It went to the share price of the company. Because the profits are increasing, the share price will increase. And if the share prices are increasing, okay, so you are getting dividends also. If you are having more profits. So what is dividend? It is the sharing of the profits by the company. As people are buying your shares, they will become the part owners. Okay. So if the company is in loss, yes, the loss is also even shared with the company, like the shareholders. In the sense, they are not asking more money, but the price of the share decreases. So that is where they are getting a lot of losses incurred. Okay, if you enter at a higher rate into the share market. But if the company is having more and more gains or more and more profits, it will be distributed among all the shareholders. So it is said, so if you are looking into share market and all, so you could say that okay, this particular company has declared dividend of 2 rupees, 3 rupees, 10 rupees, 80 rupees, okay, up to 800 rupees per share. Okay, recently some pharma companies have even come up with around 400 to 800 rupees. Okay, because that much of gains or profits they have made in this particular situation of COVID, because their products are being bought in a tremendous way. So their profits are also increasing in a tremendous way, and they are sharing the profits with their shareholders. So shareholders are the part owners of the company. Okay, that is how it is. The companies must also take into account fluctuations in demand caused by changes in the economies of different countries. Okay, so that is what I explained. Again, in some sectors like pharma industry, the medicines what they are producing, just not medicines, it could be anything. It could be companies producing masks. It would be companies producing sanitizers. It could be companies producing some drugs which are very much related, like remdesivir. So you might have heard about this shortage of all these things, and companies that are producing the COVID vaccines. So those particular companies are making hell a lot of profits now. Okay, and it is being shared with the shareholders. So which companies are listed in the share market, and the people who are having the shares of these particular sectors or companies, they will be getting the dividends. Okay, so firms with the production flexibility experienced unutilized capacity in the Asian plants when Asian economies slowed down between 1996 and 1998. So if you are not flexible enough, you are not catering the world market, if you are only catering the regional market, if the economy falls, okay, so there will be no demand for your product. So what happens? In turn, your production will become slow. So your capacity is unutilized. It is just falling over there. If you are having capacity of producing 100 units per day, and if there is no demand, you are producing only 20 units per day, we are underutilizing the facility for 80 products. We are only producing 20 products where the capacity of production is 100. Okay, so that is what they are telling. In Asia, this happened in Asian plants of many companies where they were not utilizing it for sales in different countries. So what happened? The demand decreased and the facility was underutilized. Okay, or unutilized. Then coming to political factors. So we'll complete the political factors and we'll stop for today. Then we'll continue in the next class again. Okay. Political factors. The political stability of the country under consideration plays a significant role in location choice. Okay, first I'll read all the three, then I'll explain. Then companies prefer to locate facilities in politically stable countries where the rules of commerce and ownership are well defined. Okay, then countries with independent and clear legal systems allow firms to feel that they have recourse in the courts. Okay, should they need it? In the sense, so people or the companies try to set up their factories or their manufacturing plant in a country where there is stable political government. Okay, why we tell the stable political government? Because these particular governments rule that particular land. Okay, so it needs to be stable. So as and when new and more or different particular parties come into the power, they may come up with different rules and regulations. Okay, so they may increase the taxes, they may decrease the taxes. We never know. It is a threat to these kind of companies. So if it is decreased, it is well and good. They are happy. But if it is increased, they put more restrictions. Okay, they put more of tariffs on imports than exports. So it is very difficult for the companies to set up uh, facilities in such places because of new policies that may brought that this particular new governments may bring. Okay, so people or the companies look into stable governments. So if you see in the present situation, there is a majority government in center. Okay, so if it was a coalition government in the sense different parties come together and form a government. So what happens here? It is very difficult for the ruling party to come up with some new rules and all, because it has to be taken permission from both the houses, that is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. It has to be passed from these two houses. So as we are not having clear majority, you may not get the approval very easily. So if the one of the party that was in the coalition states, I don't support this. If you come up or if you try to come out with this particular policy, okay, I will come out of the coalition and your party falls or your government falls. Okay, so this is one of the threats basically of a coalition government. So in the present situation, we can say that Indian economy or Indian political condition is stable because it is a majority of one party only. So as and when the head of that particular family political party takes a decision, okay, it could be anonymously voted and it could be passed in both the uh, houses, that is Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha in India. Especially if something new rule has to be brought in, it has to be taken through Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha for the approval of all the MPs and MLAs, where there is a majority. So majority is more than 50% of all the elected people should provide for or against. So if it is against, it will be scrapped, or if it is for, it will be taken forwarded, or it will be taken forward and it will be implemented all over the country. So that's why political factors play a lot of like importance in setting up of a factory. You might not think much of it, but if you are in a position of that particular person who is setting up of a factory, you will surely take into account of all these factors. And if you are globally present, if you are only present in India, we cannot do anything. You have to focus, or we have to build our factory in India. But again, state-wise, we can choose. I gave you an example of Tata. So state-wise, we can choose. But if you are present globally, so we can check where it is very easy to set up and where stable government is already there. So we'll try to go and set up our plants or facilities over there. So that is what is this political factors. Okay, I hope it is clear now. So even legal system. So if something happens, so you will be dragged to court. Okay, so present situation. Okay, it may not fit here, but the present hot topic in India is the regulations for the social media companies. Okay, like the Facebook, Twitter, and the WhatsApp and all. So if you see, there is a big battle going around with the Twitter and the Indian government. Okay, they want all these social media companies to come under the Indian laws. I mean, the social media laws which are being brought in. Okay, so recently which are being brought in, but these people or the companies are opposing it. Okay, because certain terms are there. If you want, you can go and check on this particular issue. So yesterday, I think yesterday or a day before yesterday was the last day to comply for this. Okay, so I think Facebook has taken it into court, stating that some rules has to be changed or they don't want to come under this particular law and all. But the same companies are under similar laws in European Union. So they are having very strict, laws for what do you call it? Privacy laws. We call them as privacy laws. So they have already in place the privacy laws. So if they want to work or they want to have the social media in those particular countries, they have already told we are having this laws. If you comply, you are eligible to work. Otherwise, we'll throw you out. The same thing when India tries to do it, these people are not ready to comply because they are getting all the information of all the users and they could use it anyhow. So recently, again, the new WhatsApp policy that was there in place. Again, those people had given a deadline. So if you are not complying, you will be thrown out of WhatsApp. And later on, the government has to intervene, and they said yes, they cannot do. You cannot do all these things. The basic thing was whatever you are using, the WhatsApp and all, whatever you are texting and all, it will be monitored and based on your text on certain products. Okay, advertisement would be shown of different companies in your WhatsApp, like they do in the Facebook and all. If you see, you would see some ads that would be running in and around your WhatsApp. Sorry, in your Facebook. So similar kind of things. There could be information exchange from Facebook to WhatsApp and WhatsApp to Facebook. That is what is the this particular privacy policy. Sorry, the new policies that are there. So you might have seen if you are not agreed yet, every time you open your WhatsApp, you are getting a particular consent, okay, consent form stating that new policy is there, you accept it. Okay, so again, these things are going on. So even politically, if they are not stable, so companies can even exploit you. They can take all your information and they could sell it. So you can just imagine how the company is making profits. So they are giving you WhatsApp for free, right? They are giving you Instagram for free. They are giving you Facebook for free. They are giving you Snapchat or any other things for free. But how they are basically getting profits? By the information that you are providing to them. Okay, that will be in turn sold to different companies. Okay, or even they charge for the advertisements to be put in those particular channels. Okay, so these things are very much important. Okay, so if you want to come into a particular like in a particular country or region and have your things set up, so that's why I gave you example of this particular Facebook and Twitter that is being run as of now it is going on. So even if you see yesterday also there was some exchanges between Twitter and the government of India. So you can go and check on the specifics and more information on this. Okay, so these are some of the factors which play a lot of importance in the setting up of your company or a factory or your usage in a particular region or country. Okay, so these are the political factors. There are some other factors also. So we'll look at them in the next class. So we'll stop the class for today, then we'll continue in the next class. I hope you have given your attendances, right? So you have messaged your attendance. Okay, students, we'll stop for today. Take care and we'll meet in the next class.